And we're live. Okay, we're starting just a couple of minutes early just to give folks a little bit of time to get settled and to watch. I hope you're watching this broadcast live. I'm Amy Shajai. I'm one of the founders of the Cat Writers Association, and I'm super pleased to be helping kind of behind the scenes here with an interview that Marci Kladnik, our CWA President, is going to be introducing her guest, and who is actually one of our CWA sponsors. And I'm so excited to hear what's going to happen, because we're going to learn a lot, I think, about our kitty cats that maybe we didn't know before, and you can share this with all the writers out there can share this with their audience. So take it away, Marci.
Well, welcome everybody who's there. I'm not sure how many there are, and I hope there are plenty. As Amy said, I am Marci. I'm the president of Cat Writers this year, and hopefully for next year. And our guest today is Dr. Elizabeth Colleran of the Chico Hospital for Cats in Chico, California. She's also the spokesperson for the AAFP, and I would like her to explain what that is and to introduce herself even further. So, Dr. Colleran.
Well, thank you so much. It's such a great honor to be here, and I'm so excited about the conference. It's just one of those once-in-a-lifetime opportunities that I couldn't pass up. I have two cat practices, actually, one in Chico, California, and one in Portland, Oregon. And a few years ago, I was the president of the American Association of Feline Practitioners. And feline practitioners is a group of veterinarians, now about 3,000 strong, who are really dedicated to healthcare and science and research and education about the feline species. And when I discovered this organization, I knew I had come home, because they are passionate people about cats. And so we began about 35 years ago. Our most recent effort has been to create a better environment for cat owners and guardians at the veterinary establishment called Cat Friendly Practice. So that's the thing we're working on really hard now. And I'm the chair of that task force.
And the AAFP is partnering with CWA this year. Can you explain why that is important?
Oh, that's a really easy coalition, because cat writers have the ear of the public. You have the ability to reach people and educate them in ways that veterinarians just don't have the opportunity to do. I teach veterinarians and veterinary support staff, but I don't get to go out and teach all these people who have cats living in their house who they are and how best to take care of them, and you all do. And it's a great partnership. I think it's something that going forward is going to be a very rich opportunity for all of us.
Well, I know I've had cats my whole life, and for the last 8 years I've done TNR, and I work with feral cats, and I am still learning. I don't know. I've learned so much, and I know how much I didn't know when I thought I knew everything. And
I know, and the interesting thing is that we all dearly love our cats, but so many of us don't know very much about them. There's something very, very important to understand about them, and that is they are unchanged from the same cat that came into our lives 4,000 years ago. Think of all the different species that we as human beings have changed. We've changed cows and goats and pigs and horses and all these other species. We've changed them dramatically. Not so cats. They are exactly the same creatures that came into our lives 4,000 years ago. And that has really important implications in what they need in their homes.
Yeah. Even the breeding is happening?
Well, but you have to remember that that's a really small part of the actual population of cats. Only about 1.5%, I think, of companion cats is actually bred. The rest of them sort of figure it out on their own.
Ah, yes, indeed. So I know that you have a cat-friendly, cat-only practice. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And two of them. Yes, boy, that's quite a commute. And what is the benefit for that for the cat and for maybe the veterinarian itself? Yeah, herself?
Well, you know, everybody wins. I won because I got to focus. I got to pick the species that I was going to know deeply about. I felt like it was better to be a specialist about one species than it was to know a whole So I get to focus, I get to tailor everything to cats. What cat owners and cats get is that level of understanding of who they are and how they live in the world and how best to treat them. In the cat-friendly practice program, what we're trying to do is translate those skills into the general veterinary practice, those establishments that see dogs and cats and horses and so on, mostly dogs and cats, and give them the kind of skills to create an environment where getting regular health care isn't an awful thing to think about for either the cats or the owners.
So that's one of your decisions on why you wanted to be a veterinarian. You wanted to focus on something that you really loved, and then you've taken that further and just focused on cats. Mini focus.
Yeah, I'm a one-trick pony.
Yeah. What in particular made you want to focus on this, on the feline health? And that's what you just kind of said that it's one of your loves, and you wanted to be able to focus specifically on a particular species.
Well, it's more than that. You know, they're so fascinating. I just felt that I wanted to, if I was going to do something, I wanted to do it really well. And if I was going to pick a species, it was going to be the one that I thought is the most interesting. They are solitary hunters, territorial, hypercarnivores. They are just a completely different kettle of fish, if you will. They are just so interesting. And so studying them has been a great honor. It's just been a privilege to do it.
So you've just touched on something that, let's call them the bird people. And the carnivores and the hunting, how would you respond to that? Is there any way to curb that, or say, I don't know, distract the cat from doing that if it's outside?
The hunting is an absolutely essential behavior repertoire of the cat. Now, do they have to kill things? No. So what we need to do as cat guardians is make sure they have all kinds of other ways to act out these really essential behavior repertoires. They're absolutely unique to this kind of a hunter, but the cat's brain is just wired. So what we need to do is we need to create activities for them where nobody gets hurt, but they can act out these really essential behaviors. And so really active toys, my cats love these bird toys, you know, that fly through the air. I try to teach people to learn how to play with their cat in such a way that the cats can actually act out this really essential behavior.
And so you actually let them catch the bird, don't you, at times? Not just keep it out of there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They have to be able to catch and kill something, you know. And in fact, there's some really good research. Believe it or not, there's some really interesting research on what cat toys work best. And one of the things that they discovered is that if cat toys fall apart, if they change in texture, if you can make them come apart, that those toys really work. They're much more satisfying for the cats because the cats actually get to act as if they're sort of doing what they ordinarily would do, which would be to dismember something and eat it.
Okay, I'm going to jump in here because my cat Karma absolutely adores tearing up the bird feather toy, and I'm cheap, so I buy cheap feathers and reload them, and he pulls it apart and thinks he goes and he sits in front of the cabinet. I have to hide it in the cat-proof cabinet because otherwise he'd be dragging it all over the house. So I'm doing something right. Goody.
You're absolutely doing something right. It used to be, in fact, it was John Bradshaw that discovered this and did this research, and he basically figured out that those cheap toys that fall apart are much more satisfying to the cats than the ones that are really, really hardened and never fall apart. So you're doing it right, Amy.
All right.
Well, that's great. That's something I never even thought of. So that's perfect. See, I learned something new.
Well, and see, Marci, well, I need to let you know, Marci has built a catio outside, a safe catio outside for her cats, but then she has birds coming in as well. But so she's trying to do things right also and give them good environmental stimulation, but still keep the birds safe.
I'm a big catio fan. I have one at my house and I have one in my practice in Chico because I actually have some land around the practice, and we built one there for our hospital cat. And he goes out there at will all the time and everybody stays safe, but he has plenty to do all day long. And that's really important. These cats need to be busy, and we need to give them stuff to do because now it's become our responsibility. Those cats in the wild went hunting, they gathered their own food, they you know, hunted all kinds of creatures. It's a very stimulating life for them. It's very short because they don't live very long, but it's a very rich life. And what we're obligated to do as humans who love them is create a similarly enriching environment for them to have wonderful lives. There's nothing worse than a barren world for a cat.
So let's touch now on indoor versus outdoor. I'm picking up that you're advocating indoor only. I do too, and which is why I built the catio, because I feel guilty. And also I want to enrich their environment, of course, and I keep adding to it, and pretty soon their house is going to be bigger than mine. But let's touch on that, indoor versus outdoor.
Sure. Well, here's the thing. I keep my cats indoors because the outdoor perils are also significant. So I live in an area where there are coyotes and bobcats and other animals that could make my cats be toast or a snack. So there's a number of reasons why my cats stay indoors. But when we make that decision to keep them in the house, we humans take on the responsibility to create a rich and full life for these hypercarnivore hunting territorial creatures. So on the one hand, we can keep them safe and keep wildlife safe, but we take on an additional set of responsibilities when we decide to do that.
Okay,
yeah, they're not basically our pets at all. I mean, you can't just turn them loose and expect them to be not get into trouble. I tell a lot of clients, you have a border collie kind of a cat. They're going to empty your sock drawer to get something better to do. So what are some suggestions? Sorry, Marci, jumping in here, but what are some suggestions? Are puzzle toys, feeding puzzle toy kinds of things effective for cats? I know we advocate for dogs a lot of times.
Some puzzle toys are really helpful. I have a video of my own cat, though. He would burn like a calorie an hour. He figured those things out in like a New York minute, and so he had that all nailed down really fast. Puzzle toys can be helpful. Hiding things for cats to find, to actually hunt. I use cat treats around my living room, and then I play with the cats with a laser toy, and we finish the session on a treat so that they have something to kill. And somebody pointed out to me, though, a lot of times what they're hunting goes down a hole, so it's not all that unusual for things that they were hunting to disappear. But I like them to have something sort of nice at the end. But it's about interacting. It's about creating hunting, mimicking hunting, I guess you'd say.
So if we're treating our indoor kitties and trying to keep them occupied, how do we keep them from getting fat?
Well, that's a really big problem. About 1 in 3 cats now that's an adult is overweight or obese. Part of that is the way that cat food is formulated. Cats are hypercarnivores. They actually have a requirement for around 40 to 45% protein as a healthy adult. And along with that, on the dry food side, is a whole lot of carbohydrate calories that come with it. And so there are a number of things that are a problem there. One is they need to get enough protein, and in order to get enough protein to keep them well muscled, they end up consuming a ton of empty calories in the form of carbohydrates. The other thing is that people think that it's okay to free feed cats. Well, it's not. In the wild, they actually hunt 10 to 15 and sometimes more because they're not very efficient hunters. So they work hard for their food in the wild. And if all they have to do is burn a calorie walking up to the food bowl, it's not unlikely that they're going to get fat. So it's about meal feeding, it's about food selection, it's about understanding the nutrition, the nutrient content in the food you're feeding. It's a really big deal.
Mm-hmm. But it's
and
interesting.
It's not simple.
That I found it interesting you said that they are not very efficient hunters. I thought they were.
They fail. They fail a lot. If you've ever actually watched cats hunt there's some actually interesting videos. If you've ever watched cats hunt in the wild, they actually are pretty inefficient. First of all, they're solitary hunters, and so they don't get any help from the pride, you know, like in the lion world. And so their meals are really one cat-sized meal of one mouse, right? And they're not really very efficient at it. I mean, they fail as many times at least as they succeed. So they really do work hard in the wild for their food. And so when we feed them the way we feed them, it's no bloody wonder they sleep 23 hours a day and get fat.
All right, I'm going to start hiding their kibble.
Yeah, let me jump in just real quick. I'd like to ask your opinion then on raw feeding and home-cooked diets. I know that we have problems with some commercial diets that maybe have a lot of empty carbs, and I know the pet food companies are really struggling and trying to do the right thing for our animal companions, but there's a whole contingency out there that are very strong advocates of feeding the ancestral diet, and I just wondered, what is your take on that, and how do we do that safely?
You know, it's really not the ancestral diet. You know, an ancestral diet is a mouse. You know, yeah. So let's be clear about that. Now, most of these mice that these cats would eat in the wild are also parasitized. So it's not exactly a nice, clean solution to feed them a raw diet, because now I'm not advocating one way or another. Here are the problems with raw diet feeding. The problem is food handling. And in this country, depending upon where you get your food, the chance of contaminants like Salmonella and E. coli and other really bad bugs are really significant. And if you've got kids living in your house, or you're not washing your hands as readily as you should be, the chances of cross-contamination of bacteria in a raw-fed food is really significant. And there's been several articles demonstrating that in terms of the actual bad bug population in households that feed raw diets. Now, that doesn't mean you can't do it safely. It just means you have to be really cautious about it. The other thing that people need to understand is cats actually eat according to three things: aroma, they have a really profound sense of smell, mouthfeel, and taste. So the question is, can you formulate a diet that cats will actually willingly eat on a continuous basis? And a lot of cats, well, many cats learn what food is before they're born, because they're born with a taste that's based upon what their moms ate. So you can't always assume that just because it's complete and balanced, anybody's actually going to want to eat it.
So they actually come pre-programmed to have a particular taste in mind?
Wow.
Sure. And there have been experiments that have shown this. Like, they've fed bananas to queens, and the babies are born liking bananas.
Oh, wow. That is amazing. That is going in an article. Yeah. I swear.
I would never have offered a banana.
Well, I know, and that's assuming you have a queen that'll eat bananas, right?
Yeah.
But
they climb trees too. So,
how many cats have you known that would not eat canned food? They don't think it's food.
Right.
Why is that? Because their mom ate dry food, and that mouthfeel and that taste were actually part of those babies' repertoire when they were born. So a lot of these cats that absolutely will not eat canned food, it's because they don't think it's food.
Well, I know I interviewed, oh gosh, it's been some years ago, a gentleman in the UK who had done some studies on this, and he was talking about that feral cats, Marci, if they eat something and become sick, maybe it's parasites, but they may associate it with the food and thereafter refuse or snub that particular food for that reason. And is that potentially could be an issue with our house kitties too, that they feel bad one day so they decide, oh, it's the food, I'm not eating that anymore.
Mm-hmm. They develop food aversions, and think about it in the world of this crazy carnivore that we love so much. In the wild, if they eat something that makes them sick, they learn to avoid it. So within 45 minutes of eating something, if they feel badly, they won't eat that particular thing anymore. So you take a cat and feed them something that makes them feel badly within 45 minutes, they won't eat that food anymore. So what do we do when we have sick cats? We offer them 17 different varieties of food and then can't understand why they won't eat it ever again. You know, so people are telling me about this, throwing out $100 worth of food because the cats wouldn't eat. Well, they wouldn't eat for another reason, but they associated that feeling poorly with the foods that they were trying to be fed.
Well, and we have all of these cats, particularly, you know, elderly cats with renal issues that make them lose their appetite anyway, or the liver failure cats. And how do you work with the cat's instinctive behaviors to help keep him healthy?
Well, you know what? One of the things I don't do is I don't feed them a big smorgasbord so that they end up with food aversions to like 90% of what I bought them. The other thing is that we need to use other methods. In really sick cats, to be honest with you, a lot of times we just bypass the mouth entirely. In these cats who are really seriously sick from either surgery or some illness, we'll put in an esophagostomy tube so we feed them a complete and balanced diet, which they never get a mouthfeel for, they never taste actually, and then start feeding them again once they start feeling better. So we make sure they get all the nutrients they need, but we don't actually make them choose to eat, because these cats will not eat. They just plain won't until they feel good enough. And so once we get them well, then we start reintroducing normal food, and they won't have developed an aversion to any of it. So that's how I do it.
That's fantastic information. It's something I would never have thought of. I just thought we had a finicky cat.
Yeah, I know, and we make them finickier and finickier and finickier.
I'm not seeing really any questions. We do have people watching, but I think they may have problems asking questions, so we can go on for a little bit longer, but I'd like to maybe go back, and if you could tell us why the initiative to have the cat-friendly practice. I know I have a 20-year-old cat. She hates leaving the house. How do I get her out to the house? I know she needs more than once yearly exams at this age. So is the cat-friendly practice, is that one way that's going to help her feel more comfortable and parents feel better about it?
Absolutely. But here's where Cat Writers Association comes in. One of the worst things about going to a veterinarian for a cat is the 30 to 45 minutes before they ever get to the practice. It's when you get out the carrier and they disappear under the bed, and you got to fish them out from under the bed and shove them into the carrier and all that kind of stuff. As veterinarians, we don't get to teach people how to make that part of the visit pleasant. And it's not hard, it's not rocket science, but it's one of those places where people who write about cats can help people learn that it can actually not be a horrible thing to put your cat in a carrier and then put him in a car. And if we can teach them that, then that 30 to 45 minutes would go away as a bad experience. in cat-friendly practice, we try to do that, but what we need to focus on is really making sure that we think about how a carnivore, how this particular animal experiences the world, and change how we interact with them. Like, I teach all my doctors and staff, for example, to move slowly around cats. Why would that be? Because what stimulates a cat? A mouse. What does a mouse do? Right, scurry. So if you scurry, you get them worked up. So if you move slowly, speak in low voices, try to keep all that sensory input under control, a lot of times these cats will just completely relax. That's what we're teaching in cat-friendly practice.
I know some years ago, I interviewed, oh gosh, it must have been 70 different veterinarians for a book on natural healing, holistic veterinarians, and some of the things they were doing then sounds like something the cat-friendly practice is doing now. They'd have water fountains, they would have covered soft instead of cold tables, things like that were maybe more cat-friendly. Are those some of the things that people can actually do at home, maybe play music and associate the cat with familiar music?
Sure, and I always tell people to put really nice bedding in the carrier and leave the carrier door open, leave the carrier in the living room, and make the carrier a place to go for a nap. And then don't change the bedding. When that cat takes a nap in there, he leaves behind him his really familiar smell. And so now the cat will go in, it will rest in that carrier and actually feel comfortable in it. So there won't be that level of arousal that comes when you close the door to the carrier and bring the cat to the vet. The other thing we're teaching people is how to think about cats differently, how to understand how their hearing is so much more acute. And so we speak in soft voices. The ways that we know now that cats actually find classical music soothing. There was just a study that was published, believe it or not. So now we know that there are some music kinds of things that we can do to calm them down. There's all kinds of tools and techniques, and that's what we're teaching in cat-friendly practices, how to make that experience better. So cats can get the health care they need. Think about how fast they age. My 22-year-old, before he died, was over 100 human years old. He needs regular health care. And if he can't get it because he's so freaked out that nobody can touch him, what do we do about that? So we have to change the whole experience.
I have one of my poor cats is a semi-feral, and I've had him for 8 years, and I cannot pick him up. He will come to my lap. He likes belly scratches, but if I reach for him, there's no way I could get him to a vet. That's another reason he's an indoor only, and also the fact that he's mostly white. But I'm afraid that something's going to happen to him and I won't be able to get him to the vet. Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah. Oh, me, I'm always full of suggestions. Here's the thing. Talk to your veterinarian, the one that you currently see with your other cats, and tell him or her that story and say, look, help me get the cat to the vet. There are things, we use some pharmaceuticals that we dispense for use at home that you put in food and they get nice and calmed down, and those are the kinds of things. With that kind of a cat, you need to work with your veterinarian to get him in, but you got to do it because that's at 8 years old, he's needing some, at least a look, right? I mean, somebody's got to look at him and say, at the very least say, he's really healthy, let's make sure he can't get rabies.
Yeah. Well, he's been vaccinated. I mean, because as a feral kitten, he was, neutered and vaccinated.
Yeah, but wasn't that 8 years ago?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The fun about this is we're coming up on kitten season. So now is a really good time with kitten season, and the shelter kittens are coming out of everywhere, and people are saying, oh, cute kitty. Now, what are some things people can do with their new kitten and maybe start them off on the right paw? What are some specific things that we can write about and advocate for people who are starting right now? They don't have to worry about the 8-year-old. Then we're going to start with the 8-week-old and go from there.
Before that, the most sensitive socialization period for cats to learn to love humans is between 2 and 8 weeks. So now, so these kittens that are being born, they need to be interacted with by humans from the time they're 2 weeks old, and not just one human, different sizes, different shapes, different sexes, different ages, so that they begin to sort of generalize that people are good, that people are somebody that they can relate with and love. And if those cats are socialized during that really key period, they're going to be the best pets ever.
That's great, and that's a great way people could say, oh, you know, I can't adopt right now, but maybe they could go volunteer at the shelter and do some socialization and hands-on things.
Sure. Oh God, yeah. Or foster a litter just to get them socialized. That sensitive period, once it's over, you know, I mean, there are a lot of cats that never got handled that well or that way, that will turn out to be wonderful, wonderful cats. But one of the things you know is if you get them that early and handle them and have multiple people handle them, those cats are going to be amazing pets, amazing house cats.
Good to know.
Okay, Marci, we're about out of time, so what would you like, I mean, I'll leave it up to Marci and Dr. Colleran. What haven't we touched on? And you guys can take it away and close this out.
Let's see, what haven't we touched on? The AAFP and the cat writers have joined together and are sponsoring the AAFP Cat Friendly Award. And is that because we are so good at telling people about cats, or is there another reason?
Listen, I love my, you know, I have my group of bloggers that I follow, and I think that the cat writers with the AAFP is a great coalition, because we've got the veterinarians and support staff to educate, and you all are working with, educating, amusing, having fun with your readers, and so we need to be able to think about how we can create information that'll be really good for cat owners to have, and share that between us, so that we can make sure that we're reaching people with really good information that they're really excited about.
Well, you all are a fantastic resource for us when we do need quotes for our articles, and when we're struggling to write, and you're fantastic with that, and we appreciate it. So thank you from all of us for being willing to help us with.
We think this is the beginning of a great new partnership.
And I want to give a shout out to another partner with Cat Writers is the Blog Pause organization. We are going to be holding our conference this June in conjunction with Blog Pause, so there would be a lot of cat lovers there, cat writers there, dog writers too, ferret writers, bird writers. Everybody's going to be there, and Dr. Colleran is going to be there. She's going to be on a panel, and so you can meet her in person. Come to Blog Pause Cat Writers Association Conference. And stay tuned. Thank you for coming. I'm going to stop the broadcast shortly and make it on the recorder, and we can share that far and wide. Dr. Colleran, thank you so much. Marci, thank you so much.
And thank you.
I think I pushed all the right buttons. Bye-bye.
We'll see you all in June.
Bye-bye.
Bye.